I want more people to bump into nature so that we can experience more of our nature. And I've never told a story about why until today. And to share that story, I have to tell you a story by Attar of Nishapur, who is a Persian poet. And he talks about three butterflies and the candle flame. And so the first butterfly went close to the flame and said, "I know about life." The second butterfly went close enough to let its wings be burned and said, "I know how love can burn." And the third butterfly flew directly into the flame, was consumed, and he alone knows love. And I've lived each of these butterflies. And as I walk through my experience of being each, I would invite you to think about which one you are now and which one you might become if you dared to change. And I knew about life. I was the first butterfly, but this happened because of an experience when I was 12. In a conversation with a friend and loved one who was suicidal, I had no answers to their challenge and to their situation. I only had my presence and my ability to ask questions. So deep in my bones, I was left with those two things. Being present and asking questions can help somebody be where they are and take whatever next step is helpful for them. So I wanted, as a 12-year-old, never to be in that situation again and not knowing. I became the first butterfly. I knew about life because it was easier to read about life than experience it. It's easier to watch social media feeds of other people doing things than for us to experience the journey of becoming that person. I've read lots of books. I read about heartbreak because it was easier than me experiencing my own. I read about potential because that was easier than facing the shame of not experiencing my own potential. I was the first butterfly, and I was well practiced in it. Then I moved to the corporate world, and I've spent maybe 20 years in that space. And when you join an organization, there is something of you that you grow and expand into. There's a part of you that's honored and given that space to expand into, and we're built for that expansion. But there's a part of you to belong that you must give up. And I started experiencing this. And I'm talking about it from an organizational perspective, but you will recognize this in your own life. There are containers, whether that's people, organizations, groups of people we spend time in, or, as we've heard, our own beliefs and insecurities that cage us in, contain what we're possible or what we're capable of, and hold us back. And I experienced the tension of this many times, until I started to explore what was beyond. And asking that question, it takes courage, it takes bravery, and I can't say that I'm fully past it or through, but looking beyond was really powerful for me. And that brought me one day during COVID into the forest. I was lost. I was alone. I was scared. I didn't know what was on the far side of making the decision to leave the organization. I had done good work with great people, and I had moved into a global leadership development role, and I really cared deeply about the work, but a part of me was dishonored. I wasn't honoring a part of me that needed to come out. And in those acts of staying where I was making small betrayals to my authenticity. And again, you may recognize yourself in that. We make these small micro commitments against ourselves, not honoring that part of us, and that eats us up, and it ate me up. And so in the forest, wandering one day, this is beside my house, I grounded. I felt the ground beneath my feet. I felt the emotions that I was experiencing in the moment. I got really clear. I got really connected to myself. I got really connected to other people that were in my life and in my mind and in my heart at that time. And I say metaphorically that I found my heart in the forest. And I bumped into my nature, which is to be connected, to grow, to expand. And I want more people to bump into that, What if more of us bumped into our nature, bumped into our possibility, bumped into our ability to grow and to develop and to become a little bit more of who we are? I want to increase the likelihood of that. Hence, I'm going to plant as many trees as I can. And it's easy to have these insights in the forest. It's easy to be enlightened while you're reading a book. It's much harder to have the conversation with life. It's much harder to have that interaction with heartbreak, with grief, with emotions, with all of the discomfort that comes from being alive. Yes, there's joy, but there's also grief and sadness. And in the room is, I'm going to get emotional. In the room is my son, Jack. And on any good journey, there's always a guide. You'll hear him at the back of the room, but he has taught me more in 8 months than hundreds of books. He taught me what aliveness looked like, naturally. He didn't have to think about it. He wasn't doubting himself. He taught me what presence was, and he taught me what being enough was. If we start from that place of enough, like I felt with him, imagine what we would be capable of. And he taught me our natural state is joy, curiosity, and an expansion into life. And we're built for that. And we don't always honor it. I don't always honor it. So I've learned so much from Jack. And in the notes preparing for this, I said, who I want to be when I grow up is Jack. I want to be more like him. The other thing I didn't say about the forest that adds to the story is only in preparing for this conversation did I realize that the forest did for me what I had done for that 12-year-old. All it did was allow me to be present and hold the questions and allow something to come from that. And when we open, I say open our hearts, so the antidote to exhaustion is not always rest. Sometimes it's wholeheartedness. But when you open your heart to, for example, with Jack, it's joy, love, excitement, and an excitement for his journey in the future, you also let in some of the difficulty of life. And I've experienced this in roughly the last 4 weeks. I've gotten to experience Jack taking on new stages and new development kind of steps in his journey. But I've also lost a 98-year-old friend of mine, Mary. And my heart, it's hard to hold all of life. It's hard to hold all of that human experience. And I don't stand on this stage on my own. I have a beautiful wife who I love and adore. I have my son, Jack, multiple mentors, multiple therapists. I'm not broken. I'm really human. And again, giving ourselves that permission to ask for help to hold what's sometimes difficult and sharing that experience is really powerful. And it's been really powerful for me. And the increase in awareness that we all seek, you must develop in tandem compassion. You are human. Shame is the response when we do not allow ourselves to be human, because we compare ourselves to a standard that we can never hit, and all we do is suffer in comparison to it. So I believe when we talk about endings, when we talk about being present with aliveness, and we look into the next moment, whatever that looks like for you, it's uncertain. We can project in negative fears. We can know about what we want. We can know how life and love will burn us. But we can also use our emotions to help guide us across that unknown horizon. Emotions are some of the signal, and it's not always just negative. It's the positive emotions we want to experience on the far side. I want more joy. I want more aliveness. I want more love, contentment. We forget about those kind of emotions and instead project into the future a fear, a narrowing, a less than. I'm not enough. We start from there and we project negatively into the future. What if we allowed ourselves to experience more of the positive emotions, projected that into the future? At least balancing it out. That's something that helps us feel more alive. And in my work, it's easy to talk about theories. I know thousands. It's easy to talk about models and techniques, and it's easy to talk about strategy and all those kind of things. This is the impact of my work. This was a message from a client, extremely successful business person. Now his life is full of love, and he is still successful. And if I can create more of that, I will dare myself to change, to become that. So I don't know what the next moment, I don't know the next words out of my mouth, what they're going to be. But I know that nature, I know the connection, and I know that love is going to feature. And so to end and round off the conversation, I'll tell you a story by David Whyte. He's a Welsh poet. And he talks about, in his book, Crossing the Unknown Sea, work as a pilgrimage of identity. The story of the albatross bird. And the albatross birds can fly without landing. They sleep while they're flying. They can fly without landing for up to 13 months. Phenomenal bird, incredible capacity. But they're born on the Galapagos Islands. Small chicks, they hatch, and they feel this longing, this yearning to grow, to expand, to spread their wings. And eventually, they know that there's a cliff that they will jump off. They get closer day by day. They retreat, closer day by day. And then there's a day that they honor it. And I've thought about changing this last part and not saying, some of them die, but some of them fly. And now that I've left it in, our bodies will experience a lot of change as I could die. It's an act of self-love, but it feels really icky. My intention with sharing that is, that's not necessarily true, but the ability to fly just might be if we dared ourselves to change. And so I can't dare you to change. I can only do that for myself. I can just invite you to do that. And I'm excited to meet who you and I might become if we did that a little bit more often. Thank you.